culture. You're listening to SewBro, where we talk and sew. Today, I'm joined by my guest, writer, actor, director, Becca Khalil.
Hi, my name is Becca Khalil. Becca Khalil, if you're nasty.
So, what came first? The writing, the acting, the directing?
Oh, what a great question. When I was little, I wanted to be a cheetah girl. That's my answer every single time. I wanted to be a cheetah girl. I wanted to be Galleria. Do you know this movie? It's a Disney Channel movie.
I remember the Cheetah Girls.
I wanted to be one of them. So I wanted to be a singer, dancer, model, actor from my earliest memories. And then things just kind of fell off. And then I just wanted to be an actor for a long time. And then I started writing poetry when I was in high school because I didn't feel like there were many opportunities to act, but I went to a performing arts school. And so I started writing spoken word poetry. And now I've lived in LA, so it's turned into script writing and directing. I just found along the way. I love directing. I'm directing a show right now.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
So, who's a writer, actor, or director that really inspires you, that shares a narrative that makes you go, I want to tell a story like that, or I want to be involved in a project like that?
Great question. Honestly, right now the answer has to be Quinta B. Quinta Brunson. She wrote Abbott Elementary, the television show. She also grew up in Philly. Go Birds. And she was famous for these little YouTube sketches that were really funny, and then she became a BuzzFeed artist, and then she started working in the more mainstream Hollywood sphere. She's been just a huge inspiration. She's my height. She gets big points because she is my height, and she is just a really powerful, smart writer who created this funny, genuine, heartfelt show that she stars in. And yeah, so I gotta say right now it's Quinta Brunson. And the show has so much heart and has such a great purpose. It's about saving public schools, but it's a sitcom comedy, multicam. It's hilarious. Big fan.
Cool. I have not.
You never seen it?
I haven't seen Abbott Elementary because I don't have the service.
The streaming service, yeah.
And also just, being a nerd, I'm watching cartoons like a good adult rather
Fair
than
enough.
award-winning series about saving something I care much about.
Yeah, I get it. I don't watch that many cartoons, I'm not gonna lie. I love them. I have respect for the art. I love voicing cartoons, but in my free time, it's just not what I watch.
Wow, you sound like an adult.
I am not. I'm not. I actually watch the opposite of adult content. All I watch is young adult, mostly old movies, 90s movies or things I grew up with. And I just watched a show called School Spirits. I got Paramount. I subscribed to Paramount so I could watch the last new season of this show called School Spirits, which is definitely not created for my age group. But I love it. I just love it. That's what I watch. Spy Kids.
Okay, Spy Kids is a classic.
Yeah, but this is what I watch every day. Is Holes. Holes is one of my favorite movies. When the fires happened, I emailed my agents at 2 a.m. and was found out there's a Holes reboot, gender swapped. Please advise, find audition for me, thank you. It's the middle of the fires, or I'm also checking the watch app to make sure the fire is not headed in my direction and I have to evacuate when I found this out. Anyway, yes, that's what I watch in my free time. Children's content.
I am a huge Shia LaBeouf fan of his acting. Him as a person, different story. His acting, and before everything else that happened in the previous years, growing up, he was one of my favorite actors, and I felt like he captured something about adolescence.
Right.
And Holes was just a classic. The soundtrack, the comedy, the dynamic between...
That was a prime film, okay? I could really go on about Holes. It is not due to Shia LaBeouf, though. It would have been better with a plus-size child, like written in the book, although I respect the reason they didn't put a plus-size child was because that child loses a lot of weight over the course of them, like, basically being starved at this camp, so that's a good choice. But they could have had a plus-size child, and you would have stolen my heart in the same way, because Louis Sachar did a great job with writing that book. Anyway, passionate about this movie. You'll get more energy out of me for Holes than almost any other subject.
I read the book.
Beautiful book.
And I was bummed they didn't have enough scenes of Stanley getting bullied. They did
not.
They didn't solidify that, no, it's not just he's poor, he's getting bullied too.
He had a horrible life, that little kid. It's a beautiful book. Okay, what else can I say? I know all the words to the whole song. That book. Also, the one critique I have for the book is that the movie made the, like, if only the woodpecker sighs song, they improved upon it. That's my only critique for the movie. Or for the book. The movie is stunning, and so is the book. You couldn't have a negative thing to say about either of them. I'm sorry. I have, like, nothing else to say about Holes other than glowing praises.
Well, did you know there was a sequel to the book?
I did know. I've never read sequel to the book.
The sequel to the book was more like an episode in Atlanta than a sequel to Holes.
Interesting.
Because it followed Armpit's life after the camp.
I did hear about this book.
And I read it in middle school, and I probably would have enjoyed it more as a young adult. But as a middle schooler, I was just like, yeah, this is just a little much.
Was it like... What was it like?
Well,
did it still, like, cross the boundaries of time?
Not really. It was he's volunteering to help this special needs child who's a fan of this pop star that he starts to crush on.
Armpit.
Yes. And because it's like some Make-A-Wish volunteer stuff, the celebrity is seeing the special needs kid, and Armpit's slowly like picking up on this person's drama, but like, oh, I had a rough background too. I can emotionally support you through this.
We didn't grow on the successful things that happened in Holes here. We just picked a character we liked and we wrote a story about it.
And through it completely in a different direction.
Interesting. Well, all I have to say to that is ARMPI to the T. What does that just smell? Dog, that's me. Okay, that's all I have to say. That's the beginning of Armpit stanza in the song. And that's where my knowledge of Armpit ends. Right there. Maybe I'll read the book one day. It seems like a fast read, but I love that book crosses time and space. I love that it explores themes of race for kids. I love everybody's performance in that movie. I love everybody's performance in that movie. Let's say that. I love Hector Zeroni.
I think it teaches kids a powerful lesson that Texas loves locking people up and putting them through cruel and unusual punishment.
Hear, hear.
Like...
I also have this theory. Want to hear my theory?
Yeah.
I have this theory that Mr. Sir... I don't know when the last time you saw this movie is, okay? But I've seen it very recently. And I watch it very often. And I have this theory that Mr. Sir... I don't remember. It might have said something about him in the book. But I have this theory that Mr. Sir is a trans man. And his name is Mr. Sir. And then at the end of the movie, they say, Leslie, is that you? And then, the kids are like, Leslie, that's a woman's name. And he's like, yes, it is. Or something like that,
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant fan theory. I think if they ever remake it, which give them a year, I think that would be an awesome angle to play off of, because that's one of those jokes where it's like, when you're a kid, you're not thinking about that.
That's kind of what I love about it, is that there is nothing else in the movie that might imply that. It's just one little line that I'm like, every time he says that, what is that supposed to mean?
And isn't dead naming a Texas thing to do? Like...
Leslie. It's a beautiful name.
I can totally see that, and even to dig into it more, like, oh, that's the only place they can work because a trans person couldn't get a job anywhere else in Texas.
Well, I mean, a criminal mastermind who then becomes a man to continue being a criminal mastermind under the radar. Probably was a man before if you really went that far. But, this very masculine looking man who goes by the name of Mr. Sir. The other guy at least went with, like, Dr. Pendansky. Like, that's a name. He's a doctor.
It's like a drag queen name, like, call me Madam Mrs.
I love it. I love it, honestly. It's my real theory.
Okay, see, now I want to go back and watch that quite under the influence and just yes and it even more.
I don't want a sequel to, like, unpack that subject too much, but I do want it to be part of this man's reality. It's just true about him.
Holes fan fiction. Mm-hmm. Okay, that might be a Reddit rabbit hole I go down.
Please go down it. They're making I was saying this, they're making a reboot that is gender swapped.
Oh, wow. Oh, so their orange is the new blacking holes.
Yes. But for kids. Disney Plus.
Cool.
I think I couldn't get an audition because of the video. That's my real theory. But I have gotten auditions for Disney. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this in the public space. But I have gotten auditions for commercials, for cartoons for Disney. Like voiceovers and stuff. But I don't know. I don't know. Look at me. I'm so Disney. I've discovered breaking the fourth wall, and I like it. I watch sitcoms. You know what I mean? It's great. It's so fun.
Oh, yeah, and it's the fun of being in control of it.
You just cut to me.
So we've talked about artists that you like. Who's an artist you hate? Like the antithesis, someone that's like, oh, why are you making art? You're polluting minds.
DJ Khaled.
Oh, go in.
Why are you making art? You're polluting minds. I don't understand. And it sucks because I used to love DJ Khaled. I used to love him so ironically. His fucking Hot Ones episode, it changed me. He got Sean, the Hot Ones host, so mad at him because he refused to eat the chicken wings after 2 chicken wings. When the show was about eating chicken wings, okay, he refused to eat them and then said, just because I stopped does not mean I gave up. And Sean was like, that's exactly what that means. That's actually exactly what that means. And he was really pissed off. That's the one thing I love about DJ Khaled. And every single other thing about him, I hate him. He's a disgrace to his culture. He's a disgrace to his family. His family has literally, like, disowned him. He's chosen money over community, over anything. He doesn't care about anything that has any moral backing to it other than, like, being rich and staying rich. You're so rich already, you really could say anything now and still be rich forever. So to say nothing now, to be this far in and not say anything, and that's why he's a bad person. That's what I was kind of thinking about it for so long, was, do I just pick someone I think is a bad person? No. I also don't understand what DJ Khaled does. What does he do? Additionally, as an artist, what do you do? What do you do? You introduce people together and you produce a little bit? Like I know people who produce. What do you do? That's my theory on DJ Khaled. His job is easily replaceable with better artists who do better than him, and everybody is ashamed of him. That's my antithesis as an artist. I don't have to really make art. Please disappear, is how everyone feels, and everybody is ashamed of you. That is my greatest fear. Yeah. DJ Khaled. I think that's a good answer.
I feel you. I agree with you on the money part, and I feel the same way that you do about DJ Khaled, just about many artists in general. Like, what's the point of having fuck you money if you never say fuck you? Especially when other people don't have fuck you money and they have to think about their jobs before they say fuck you. And I feel like he's also an epitome of, like, celebrities now. It's like, what do you, like, the Kardashians, like, no, seriously, like what, aside from being famous for being famous and your work just being appearing at places.
Well, his actual music job is everything I hate about music today. And everything you hate about it too. He is a hook maker. All he does is make, and I know producers. All my friends work in the music industry. Right now, what your job is, where you used to produce an entire song, you produce 16 bars, and you sell those 16 bars to an artist, and you work with them on making a singular hook. There's a lot of artists who make great entire songs and also do that for other artists. He just does that. He just commercializes. That's his whole job, is to take someone else's art and be like, I'm gonna put my little twist on it. I don't get it. I would get it if he also made his entire own songs. I would maybe get it. He doesn't even make his own. Anyway, I don't know why that pisses me off so much. I just don't. Please check me. Like, tell me that I'm wrong. Tell me that I just don't know enough about making music and that actually DJ Khaled's job is irreplaceable.
No, I totally agree with you. I think there a lot more people who identify as musicians are actually just producers, because.
I mean, but it's okay to be a producer.
Producers.
He just doesn't even produce the whole song.
Yeah, and that thing is, there are people who have figured out the best place in the production structure to be to get the most money.
Yes.
Because the dude who tracks the 16 verses of the drum or guitar beat that they're sampling isn't going to make the most money on that. It's going to be the dude who asked him to sample it for him and then played around with it on the computer, actually owns the rights to it, and then takes it from there up the production side and getting it lyrics and having another singer come on. Because a lot of times it's like when you're listening to certain genres of music, the hook of the music is more entertaining than the lyrics or the singing. And I feel like DJ Khaled's an example of, like, oh, he just found where's the best place on the ladder to be.
And I just wish he could do other things on the ladder. I think it's okay to only do one. I just think it's not okay that you can't do any others. Maybe that's pretentious.
No, I absolutely, and I feel you on the where you're standing with your culture, because I felt that about other, like, Irish and American celebrities are like, hey, I don't like that you're bringing up our heritage in doing this with your actions and your time.
Right. Well, he's like on the airplane, like, I love Metlube. Have you seen that clip? No. It's DJ Khaled going, I love Metlube. I love hummus. That's it. That's the whole thing. I love Metlube.
Yeah, because I heard other people critiquing how he hasn't said anything about Palestine or what's been...
He says nothing about anything. Nothing. It's boring. I don't know. My first thought was Kanye. You know? I was like, he's also a horrible person saying horrible things. But on some level, there is work there that I have respect for. Or did, at some point.
Mm-hmm. Having studied mental illness for my other podcast so much, I feel for Kanye in that, like, did you ever see his Def Jam poetry stuff?
Yeah.
I feel like that was his sanity's cry for help, and other voices took over, because I've dealt with people who've had personality disorders, and there's a look in their eye that changes, where you're like, okay, we got to be on the retreat and contain this. There's nothing we can do to break this barrier. And I see that look in his eyes from a distance through other images, but I get that that's some of it of like, oh, he's just gone, and it's when people are in that state of mind, some people can come out of it, some people, he's clearly past the point of no return, and I feel like that Def Jam set was just, no one took it seriously. And at a time when, like, mental health was still very, like, stigmatized, and I noticed a lot of people in high school in the poetry community were just kids who the counselors would recommend, because it's like, oh, we can't prescribe you medication, and we can't prescribe you these, like, other therapies, but we can get you to go write poetry where people are very feely and emotional. So you were getting a lot of people unboxing their traumas for the first time over a poetry prompt.
Yeah. Also controversially, because I grew up in youth poetry, I think that a lot of poets in the poetry community are encouraged to push forward into their trauma in order to make art for that particular, I don't even want to say venue, because it's not the audience. It's that we have expected artists who make that kind of art to, like, bare their souls in a way that most people don't really, and that can not always be healing art making, you know? And I do think that, to your point, that Kanye was pushed in directions that exploited his pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said about the poetry scene, I saw it a lot in, like, doing poetry slams when people were like, I want to win that slam so I can be the best poet, or so I can impress that other woman in the poetry class. And that there is not, like, my takeaway from a lot of poetry is, don't show your scars unless there's a reason behind it, unless you have some resolve you're trying to find. Because a lot of times people would leave these heavy pieces open-ended because that's where they were at, and it would do great at the slam. But whereas the kids who were maybe taking the more healthy approach, learning to laugh about stuff, who weren't in such hectic, traumatic scenarios, they were also had their own struggles of like, oh, what do I write about? Because I'm losing to all of these people who have these very real issues, but it's also the competition is judging on the emotional recoil of it. Rather
interesting.
And I feel like poetry struggled to find that balance of, hey, where's the thing of being a good artist and then this being trauma porn.
I do believe in the trauma porn. I think a lot of artists are I was a young youth poet, and I was so suicidal in my teenage years. I made so many poems about how badly I wanted to kill myself, and I was a winning poet. I was winning all the time. So, and I wrote poems about how I was confused about what my culture was. Wrote poems about how angry I was about not being accepted by my parents. I wrote poems about how difficult my parents' like immigration was, and how I felt that they were like exploited for their work. They thought they were going to come here and have a good American lives, and they came here and like ended up becoming exploited. I wrote poems about privilege and passing privilege as an Egyptian person, and I would win never for something that was like me on a good day. I'm happy. You don't win a poetry slam because you're happy, so it's not even, I can understand people with like no trauma, or like young kids with like less life experience at that age, feeling that like they must push in some negative direction to like make poetry. That wasn't my experience. So like, I don't know. I see that my bigger experience was that like I knew that a suicide poem was gonna win me 30 points, but only if that poem that I wrote in my like darkest place, when I performed it, I was also in my darkest place. That when I performed it, I was feeling it, and the my youth poetry group used to say, go black, like go, black out, basically, like go so in it that you like, a performer knows when it's so in it, it's kind of like, there's spots. I'm blacked out. Or like someone who, is just a very passionate person. When you really push into that passion and you like kind of lose sense of what's going on around you because you are so focused on the art, the drums, or the art that you're making at that time. That's what they want to see on the stage. And it's just harder to get there with joy. What they want is you to go on and be like, I almost died, like they want that. They don't want, I almost died, but today I'm better now.
Yeah.
But that's a big problem in art in general.
Oh yeah, well, with movies of like black and brown trauma wins the Academy Awards, but they won't go beyond unpacking the systemic issues that led to that pain.
Right. That's even just like thematically. There's also like, artists lose their selves all the time, especially actors lose their selves all the time because they're trying to replicate some kind of pain or trauma for an audience's benefit, let alone when it's your own pain and trauma that you're selling to the world,
Yeah, and to what you said about poetry, that's why when I did see poets who could sell their happiness on stage in a way that won them the round or the competition or got the same ovation as sad poem, it seemed like it was a superpower.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or you see like the poets who are naturally funny and it's like, oh, you're playing a completely different game and we can't compete with you because comedic timing is so much harder than being the saddest of them all.
Right. Well, that's what gave George Watsky his beginning. Was that he was young and funny and quirky and weird, and he was just like V for Virgin. He was just funny.
He was like a community character come to life.
Yeah. Same with like, I think like George Watsky is kind of like the basis of why a lot of people love Bo Burnham today. Like, I think that, when you were talking about Kanye West's Def Jam, I thought about Bo Burnham's everything Bo Burnham has made. I can't even say his Inside special, because also the special out before that Bo Burnham made was also about how depressed he was, and just like even the funniest people, like you are joyous at their whatever they're offering must bring us joy, whether or not they are joyous, and that's the thing. I think the power that a lot of these like young funny poets or funny artists like capture your attention. They know how to make, it's like how comedians are like the most traumatized people around.
Some comedians are, and then others just don't. Then there's other people where I'm like, oh, maybe some trauma would help your act.
Well, I meant good comedians.
Yeah, and because I was just thinking the inverse of that, of like, some of the worst stuff to happen to me has been some of my best bits.
It's the best bits.
And it's a little annoying because I'm just like, I can't have this happen to me again, but I got the material out of it. Mm-hmm. And then like that's what I try to like use to the poetry and comedy to balance out. Like, because I do feel my sense of humor, myself turn to humor too much to cope, or myself getting a little too profound and philosophical and grandiose about things. So having that balance, but then it also they feed each other. Yeah. Because I've done storytelling shows where I'm doing a 10-minute set telling like the intersections of various stories. And while it gets heavy, then I break the tension with humor. Right. So I'm not just draining the audience.
Right. That's so interesting. Go on.
Yeah, and it's a fun dynamic I've learned to play around with, so I'm not exhausting the audience on trying to be so slapstick, because I see a lot of comedians who just don't know how to tell a story. It's just bit to bit. Mm-hmm. Whereas poetry, you're telling more of a story and you're not stuck on trying to get a reaction at a certain interval.
Right. Yeah. I've never because I also do a little bit of storytelling as well, not that much, but a little bit. And I found in the storytelling that I have done, I'm usually telling something that is a sad story. I've got a lot of sad stories, but I never tell a sad story really that sadly, and it's never been conscious. So it's interesting when you were saying that, like, I use some comedy to, like, break the tension. I don't really use comedy to break tension, but that is something that my own body does to myself with my own stories, right? Like, I am telling a story about, I don't know, whatever, drug use that I used when I was in college, and how I went into a really dark place. And the story I'm telling is actually about how I could not stop doing a puzzle. Just was having a great time. And like, that story is what makes it stick in my brain, is that it is not just one thing, it is both things. And that is that's what I think is when funny comedians or comedians or poets or whatever, those artists that stand out because of their joy, it's usually not because the story is happy. It's usually because they have a good balance of both feelings. Something happened and they persevered, and that makes it funny, or they know how to bring joy to a story that is, like, neutral, even if it's not traumatic, neutral, and they brought joy to it. There's a balance there that I think is, like, so admirable as an artist, That's why the funniest comedians are the most traumatized. Like, I love this poet. When I was young, I used to watch this poet all the time, and I still think his poems are so funny. His name is Anthony McPherson, and I just always loved, like, his early poems that I really liked were, like, All Lives Matter, 1800s edition. It's just because I own slaves doesn't mean I'm racist. You're racist for being slaves. Like, that's the poem. It's such dark subject matter told in such a light, funny way, and that made it stick in my brain for years, that balance of the two. And it taught me a lot about, like, it's just not always healthy for your brain, because just like the audience might need some reprieve with some comedy, sometimes you need some reprieve from your
and like, I've noticed this both when I've been doing comedy, like, extensively without, like, doing poetry or podcasting or doing other stuff. It calluses you when your go-to coping mechanism is humor. Because I've noticed, like, during the fires, like, I didn't want to do stand-up just because I'm like, I don't want to be around people trying to crack their normal degrees of awful joke about this. Yeah. And, like, a lot of times my favorite places to tell jokes or just to make observations are at protest. It was on the donation lines when I was helping distribute relief for the fires, because it's like, that's
where this is useful.
Yeah. Well, not like, I'm passing material, but just observing things and expressing what others are dealing with in a way that's, like, palatable and well said. Because getting back to what we were saying about, like, what the role of an artist is when there's all these emotions, when there's all this tension, saying something eloquently in a cool way, in a humorous way, in a poetic way, can help other people frame things and process these more clearly, rather than them dealing with all of the abstract concepts and figuring out how to stitch them together.
I totally agree with that. And I was saying that that's also where comedy is going to make the most impact. You go to a comedy club and you're funny, well, kind of people wanted that. They came here for that. But you're providing an art at the worst moment of somebody's life, when it can really do what it's supposed to do, which is, change someone's mindset, or in a positive way, make them feel better about a really bad day, or give them, like, 1 second of reprieve in what is a tough time. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't do comedy in comedy clubs and, provide art for when people want to have a good day and go there intentionally, but it's the biggest impact, if you help a kid with their homework at a school, that's great. You made great impact on that kid. You help a kid at the library who there's nobody there to help him, and he's just desperate, and you helped him with his homework because there's nothing, you did the same thing, but the impact of it is greater. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be helping kids with their homework at school, but, that kid needed it in that moment. He needed that help, and you were there to provide it in a way that nobody else was able or accessible enough to do, I think that's really cool. I think that I don't know if I'm a great actor, and I don't know if I'm a great speaker, and I don't know if I know very much of anything. I probably said 57 problematic things since we've been on this, podcast. But what I do know is that, I do leave an impact on people, whether I want that to happen or not. Whether I like that or not, I speak, and people oftentimes listen to me, even if I know nothing, even if I'm, and that there is a great power in that is sometimes very scary. And I'm rubbing my toes together. And it's a lot of responsibility, and it's also just like you said, you can help someone through a harsh moment just by reframing. You can help someone unpack their thoughts just by, contributing your thoughts out loud. So many things that the power of speech can do for someone's day, let alone if you're funny. Let alone if you know anything. If you're smart, actually.
Yeah. I got another question for you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the fascism in America
It's happening. That's my thoughts. We are already in it. It's not coming. I don't know. I don't have much other than that.
Has any of it surprised you, or is it just textbook America doing what America's been doing?
I don't think it's America's doing what America's been doing. Okay, this is something I say pretty often, but I think it's kind of controversial. I mean, not controversial, but I am actually low-key extremely patriotic. I love the idea of America. I love the idea that there is a country that people from all over the world come to share their culture in one melting pot. That is beautiful. And I think that James Baldwin says a really beautiful quote that I'm going to butcher. It's essentially you don't become this angry or fight so hard for something that you don't care about, that you don't love. I love this country. I love the dream that my parents came here with, which is to allow me to have a better life, and they didn't know how much better I wanted it, okay? To allow me to have a better life, whether that meant they were just going to work for the rest of their lives. They didn't know that. They thought they were going to come here, have a good life in a country where everybody comes if they are pursuing a good life. That sounds beautiful to me. People from all over the world is I want to live this dream that I imagined. And they come here and they put all their minds together and all their cultures together and they make something cooler. I mean, you can't be cooler than one individual culture, but you can make another really cool culture. Mm-hmm. And I want to be something else. That's really dope. Fascism is making one voice and not all these voices combining into this beautiful melting pot. What the fuck is the melting pot right now? It's fucking mud. It's not, there is not a blend of anything. Nobody cares about, the people on the ground. We care about each other. We care about each other's cultures, each other's foods, each other's fashions. Sometimes too much. We care about their fashions. We care about their, we make our entire identities other people's cultures sometimes here in America, because it's so amazing how much access we have to the smallest, most niche tribe in the nowhere. We can meet them, we can talk to them, we can eat their food and exchange cultures and exchange stories, and the erasure of that is so infuriating to me. It's just, what's the point? What's the point then? Everybody is, the same thing with gay marriage, whatever people's religious beliefs are, because I grew up in a very religious household, I grew up in a very religious community. I understand that there are people whose religious beliefs are that they don't, support gay marriage, whatever. I get that. Obviously, I feel a bit differently. I feel that to tell somebody else that they must live like you is the exact opposite of the purpose of America. and the purpose of the United States. It just so doesn't track, like, thematically. There's a thesis, and we didn't stay on the thesis, okay? And that's how I feel about this country, and I feel like fascism is here. It's not coming, you know. It's getting worse every day, and I do think it's a surprise. Not that America was ever good or ever fulfilled the dream, but I do think today is worse than yesterday. I think that yesterday was worse than the day before, yeah. And I think that I have a lot of theories about, like, what social media is doing to the mind, right? Like, when the Vietnam War was on television, that really changed the general trauma of the American people because we had access to it visually on the screen to a war, to this war that, in a way that we had never had before. And it humanized the violence that America participated in, that the United States participated in. And we knew who we were killing. We knew who we were attacking. And that is, of course, why students, who are always the first to stand, began to stand during those protests. And to be in America, where you have access to every person, every culture, every country, every food, everything, and also every piece of news and information in the whole world about your country's impact, it is irrepressible. It is irrepressible, and that is the point of fascism, is to repress it.
There's a lot you said that I want to unpack.
Go on.
About the patriotism thing, I agree with you. I love the idea of America.
You know?
I hate everyone involved in the concept art, in
the
original script, the director of photography. I hate...
Yes.
Like, I'm just thinking of the Founding Fathers as, like, a film.
Right, of
like,
course.
But I like the idea of, like, hey, let's see what happens when we bring in the working class from every region of the world. What's going to happen? And seeing it with, like, Anime Expo, where you see all these people who maybe outside of, like, media would not have gotten into Japanese culture the way they did. Or when you see it with, like, music and with the Palestine movement, when you see all these people from outside rocking the attire, singing the music, learning the phrases, and embracing the culture. I think it's awesome. Like, I got a taste of that when I saw, like, Kneecap make Irish culture mainstream.
Oh, so cool.
And I was just like, oh, this language I got made fun of for having my name be from, for trying to speak what few words I knew, is now cool because these guys are rapping about politics and the plight of trying to party in Ireland. And I was like, and seeing how it's like, oh, how a cool artist rocking their culture can give all these other people who were scared to share that culture an opportunity to step out and be like, this is who we are, this is what we're about. That thing you liked, that's what I'm from. And I feel like that's a lot of where people mistake nationalism for patriotism and vice versa. Patriotism is love of your country.
Yes.
Nationalism is thinking your nation state is superior to others.
Exactly.
And what you were... Patriotism.
Nationalism.
Yeah. And then you said one more thing at the very end.
Fascism being the erasure of all of these beautiful things.
Yes. Yeah. We've seen it now with them trying to strip, like, the archives and delete stuff, and then
the new book burnings, they said.
Yeah, and then trying to bring in more religious teachings into the classroom, and them saying, like, oh, DEI, this is a whole thing of, like, no, we're just including other people in the history that we only selected one side of, because I was working with the Ethnic Studies Department at San Francisco State, and this was during Obama that they were trying to cut that program. And it was because we feared stuff like this of, oh, if you take away this higher education pillar of it, it's going to make it easier to take it out of the high schools. And my point of, like, asking, like, oh, is it same old America, or is it something new? Like, I remember protesting when Obama was president. Things weren't great then, and we still had many issues with militarized police forces, with government corruption, with all these oil companies, but because it was Obama, no one wanted to take it seriously. They wanted to think we had a break from bad Republican presidents. And then when Trump came in, it's like, no, he just stepped on the gas of everything that already had the gears turning.
Right. Well, I mean, I totally agree. I don't think that anything has ever been good here. I don't think that. I mean, Obama had the worst drone killings of any president. It's like people always forget that he killed more people overseas than Trump has. We hate Trump. He's really fucking up today, but Obama fucked up yesterday. So I'm completely in agreement with you. It is in many ways typical American fashion. Yes. And in other ways, I do think that what is different is, I think it's how visible it is. It's how obvious it is that the people on the ground are not in the same place. I think that's really maybe the thing that I feel is like what has gotten worse, really, is that there have always been the majority of America, of United States people, citizens, I believe this, at least half, who don't agree in these choices, don't agree we should move in this fascist direction. I believe that has always been true. That I don't know really what the statistics say, but there's always been a large group of people who are like, we shouldn't be a fascist nation. I believe that. As time has moved on, it has become more and more obvious how many people those are. And it's become so much more apparent how little the people are listened to.
Mm-hmm.
That how little there is really democracy in the country. That is what I think. Maybe it hasn't really gotten worse, but it's gotten a lot more visible. So much more visible. And in many ways, I think that's worse. I don't know. In many ways, I think that's worse. I mean, this isn't the worst time in American history, obviously, but I think for the mental health of the American people, to feel so disempowered, so obviously, at every juncture of the day, every single thing you do is, I work too much, I don't make enough money, I can't travel anywhere, my country is killing other countries, and I'm watching it happen. My friends are being politicized. I can't, I'm worried my friends are gonna get deported. My friend's passport was just confiscated because they're trans. These are all things I know of people I know. That's just me. I'm not. Who am I? And I have many, many privileges to live in a world like that, in a country like that, constantly. I can't imagine. I don't know. I'm young, maybe, but I don't know of a time where it's been this bad on the mental health of an American citizen.
Yeah. You make a great point there.
Other than slavery.
Yeah.
I think I just need to say it point blank that obviously slavery is worse. And the plight of the black people in America is very bad and still bad. But also to be a descendant of slavery today, that's even worse. Now you are in all of these things and...
Yeah. And then all the generational trauma and wealth disparities.
Oh, yeah.
I liked what you said about, the despair that's being felt right now, because I think of it as the social contract is broken. We could kid ourselves with Obama because it's hey, those are the protesters, and it's Obama. What's the worst that could happen? And then we saw people getting gassed and grenaded in North Dakota in the winter, and
we forgot about kids in cages. Started with Obama.
Yeah, but there was that illusion of you know what, things are all right. The economy isn't too terrible. Not too many people are being rounded up and deported, and it wasn't bad enough. And we were Netflix is just a new thing, and there was just enough new technology and cool and well-played politics that we were okay with it. And then now it's just the that's despair is what was on full display this weekend in LA because
people are mad.
They're mad and they feel powerless, and then they don't have anything to grasp onto to let out their anger. And then you bring in some federal agents in some really durable
riot gear.
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, of course rocks are going to be thrown, fires are going to be started because you gave them a physical thing that represents everything they're mad about.
Yeah.
While you're kidnapping
their families.
In the middle of the workday, and that was just the final straw. You gave them something to grasp onto, and now it led to that. And that's also why it was getting so violent, because people have lost faith in their leaders. We've lost faith in the institutions at local and federal levels, and it's a sign of more so rather than the lawlessness, but just the lack of hope.
Right, exactly.
That people feel this is the only way to express their anger, and that when I was seeing so many young people out there, it's like, oh, they don't think they have a future.
No.
Climate crisis, all this stuff, they're throwing down because they feel like they don't have anything to lose.
Well, millennials are passive because we do remember a time where there was something to lose.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
And what you're saying about it being terrible for your mental health, because I was thinking, like, phone addiction isn't the worst of the addictions, but I've caught myself in realizing this is a dopamine button.
Right.
And it is giving me eerily similar feels to other, like, substances I've wrestled with in my attraction to, and other friends who struggle with addiction of just, let me just check it just one more time.
Right. And
I jokingly call the ego I get from checking my view counts on projects I post snorting the views. Because it's like, oh, all these people saw this thing I worked hard on, and then I have the come down of, but they didn't like it.
Right.
And I see a lot of that in the content being put out. People are putting out content just for content's sake, hoping it'll give them that validation or that feel of attention, rather than like times with other projects that I've worked on where I spent a year working on something because I want it to be perfect. And I want to get that gratitude of, there's no better way I could have done this. Quantity over quality. And I see that a lot in younger people posting online of, they don't have to be artists to chase that adrenaline rush and that high of being seen like performers do. And I think it's so much more scary for them because we have skills and crafts we've perfected, and that we can appreciate our hard work in, even if it doesn't get the social media attention. Whereas their only metric is those numbers that they see.
Yeah. Well, pandemic hits. Those were the only people in the world for a while.
Yeah.
You know, we had, even if they weren't born in the pandemic, like, you had, 10 years, 15 years under your belt before you had 3 years without anything under your belt. You know, those were the only people in the world. And we're talking about adult, grown people are like, I don't know how to talk to people anymore. What do you think kids feel like? You know, I felt like I was a very sheltered child. I was not allowed to, like, play outside. Like, I would, like, watch TV. I had a MySpace in, like, the 2nd grade. Like, I was very active on the internet. That is where I lived. And for better or worse, I learned a lot at very young ages. And I really felt, you know, like my whole life was on there. And I was a millennial. I can't imagine kids today. Like, I try to have so much compassion because it's almost not surrealist. It's what's that art genre where it's also ridiculous.
Of modern art?
Yeah, let's say modern art for now. But there's also another form of art, an older one, that is like Dadaism. These forms come out of times of despair because nothing means anything. So, fuck it. You know, and when we're like, oh, I feel like I'm getting old, I don't really get what the kids are doing today. It's because it doesn't have anything to get. Like, you ever seen Skibbity Toilet? This is like, kids love that shit. Teenagers, they love that shit. It has no purpose, no meaning. There's nothing like underneath skippity toilet. Like there's nothing. But everything sucks so bad that like nothing, that's a reprieve for the mind. Okay? Like it's like there is there's when things are genuine, kids are like, that's cheesy. You know, like there's nothing. I have so much faith in the next generation, actually, because they have nothing to lose, really. Like millennials are like, we don't get as radical as we should, because there is so much to lose in our minds. You know, we still are holding on to these like dreams, these pre 9/11 dreams, like, but they didn't have no pre 9/11. They didn't have they didn't even have post 9/11. If you remember 9/11, that's like a whole, you're too old now. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
Like, I won't date anyone who remembers 9/11. I thought we weren't supposed to forget. Anyway, these kids have nothing that they feel like there is hope that they should put in. So that makes the ridiculousness of life so much more apparent in these younger generations, and they fight so much harder because there is nothing to lose. And I have a lot of hope. That gives me a lot of hope, actually. That gives me a lot of hope, because there is always something to lose, but they shouldn't.
Yeah.
We gotta be fighting like there is nothing to lose if we want to ever have anything to lose.
So like you were talking about the absurdity of the up and coming generation. Oh, I totally see that, and it's because like that's how they cope. They don't take anything seriously, because if they did, they would be depressed and manic like our generation.
Exactly.
And they've seen the burnout of us from caring, failing, and having the powers of evil spring up again.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, I'm like, it's beautiful that they just like they calibrate their humor accordingly, and that because they're using their own slang, they don't have to explain it to anyone. They're only like people who get what they're going through. I think that's awesome that they have their own little bubble and way of communicating, and I also think that a bit of like what inspires me is what I see out of them too. Like the Palestine movement that sprang up when I saw those big walkouts for the climate crisis, and seeing where it's like, oh, I couldn't get support for that topic in high school, but seeing that many people who are into it warms my heart. Seeing that many people who are trying, because I still remember like in college when the Palestinian student groups were getting harassed on campus, and I was like, what are you talking about? What? This, that? And it's because it was just on the back burner, and whenever you tried to bring it up, someone would be like, I got a Jewish friend, I'm busy. And then even like other topics, like I remember trying to like address the climate crisis with a club in school, and people weren't taking me seriously or weren't about it. So it warms my heart to see that stuff that I was trying to get the ball turning on in high school and in college sprang up later. That's like, oh yes, it is important, it's still important, and it was just the bad timing for me.
Yeah.
And
it's always gonna be like that.
Yeah, and I very much turned to my little brother of, hey, what do these words mean?
But what are these?
And I forget, of course, every time he tells me, but it's also like humbling to see that new generation of slang replace my own.
Yeah, totally. I definitely feel old these days. I mean, it was when I moved to LA and like none of my Philly slang was relevant anymore. That was like already weird. But that was regional, so I was like, oh, I'm still young. It's just y'all are actually not in. And, you're not down, okay? And then
calling people John.
I was calling people John. The big one that I miss is drawlin'. Because people in LA, they drawl. But you can't say that. They don't know what that means.
One of my poetry mentors was from Philly, so I picked up on...
Everyone here draws. They draw so much.
What? Break it down for me, Professor.
I am not an expert. I really am contextual. But I would use drawlin' as doing too much, being OD, extra, dragging it out, okay? You know, everybody here is drawing. But they don't think they're drawing because they're in the entertainment field. They think, like, when you are an influencer and you're in a restaurant and you're like, hi, my name is da-da-da, and you're doing that whole thing, that you're drawing, bro. That is crazy. That is, you are doing too much over there. You know? But you can't say that here. They don't know what it means, and they just think that's normal behavior. Weird. That's the one I miss the most. I definitely do. I look so young that often, and I'm on the internet so much. I look so young. I'm Bippy. But I'm on the internet so much that I usually keep up with a lot of like evolving language. But I don't use it, and then I forget it. And then it'll be like 2 months later and someone's like, do you know about I don't know. Do you know about some random whatever? You know, and I'm like, oh no, I really don't understand any of this. You know, those whole monologues what do they call it? Something speak?
Spoken word?
No. The new age kids, they do this. I'm gonna look so old. I don't know. Can't even Google it. I don't know what I'm Googling.
You were talking about drawing and these and like Philly slang.
Yeah.
I got made fun of. I went to college in San Francisco, and after like one semester there, I came back for break, and I was using hella.
Oh, that's funny.
And I got ragged on a lot, and it
People
was
don't
just
say hella?
not in SoCal. In the Bay Area, only the Bay Area. It's.
That's funny.
And I noticed my slang every time I would travel back and forth would change just a little bit. Between SoCal and NorCal. And
I can see that.
After quarantine, I was speaking in anime terms, and that started confusing people because I was...
Right. I get that. I say y'all a lot. I don't know when I started saying y'all. I think it was to be gender neutral.
It is an awesome gender-neutral boogie board.
Yeah.
Because...
But people did think I was Southern. Actually, when I moved to LA, when I would go out, because I didn't know anybody was here by myself, I would go to, like, you know, would go clubbing I really don't club, but I'd go to a bar and I would use a fake Long Island accent because I thought it was funny.
What's a Long Island accent?
You know, like, oh my God, hi, my name is Becca, so nice to meet ya. Yeah, I moved here from Philly. Oh my God, it's been such a long trip and it's been such a good time. You know, it's like this whole Fran Drescher thing I got going on. Like, I just do this whole thing. And I start, it's just like I have some of that in when I just speak now. Because I gave myself an accent. And now I just have it. Just talking normal and like now I sound like Fran Drescher. Like, I don't even know. Let alone picking up slang and dropping slang. I'm picking up accents. Who did that? Madonna?
I wouldn't know.
She moved to a new country and like came back with like French accent or something. I don't know anything about Madonna, but I feel like this is a story. But the leaders, the trans leaders that I know the most that are the biggest activists, usually like are, well, the one that I follow the most, their name is Alex Liu, and they are my hairdresser, and they're also the hairdresser of a bunch of celebrities. I got very lucky to meet this person because we were at a Palestine event together. And this person I follow the most right now because they are in every movement. They're just really putting their body and their life on the line in so many of these movements in ICE and Palestine, all these different things, while not sacrificing like the artistic career that they're building in like literally Hollywood. And also they are so like cute and stylish and like unapologetically queer in all of these places. And in the same way that like, you know, I respect the place that privilege gives you to be in the front of the line, you personally. Yeah. Right? I also respect that this person does not have the same privilege and is making themselves so visible that it's undeniably visible, and that is so cool. It is so cool for so many reasons, because the white people will always be around doing the work, or not doing the work, but there will always be white allies, but they're always going to be at the front of the crowd. But you don't always see how visible your queer leaders are, your trans leaders are at the front of the pack. You know, it's because of the danger, because of the risk. We don't always look at the front of the pack and see trans and queer leaders. And I think that is fucking cool, to be like successful and yourself, just like unapologetically yourself, and constantly put yourself at the front of the pack, and so visible in such dangerous ways, while not sacrificing like your artistic integrity. It's just so cool to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I want to yes and what you were saying, because 14 years of activism has taught me that a lot of times the most needed people in the movement never go to the protests or at the front.
Right.
They're the ones building the community.
Yeah.
Holding the meetings, holding space, reaching out. And that's where I've seen so many queer, trans,
right,
and more marginalized folk become these epicenters and magnets
right.
for the organizing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the organizers I learned the most from, you would never see them at the rally. And
right.
and that was enlightening to me, like, oh, they're using their brain, their heart, and their minds, and making those connections that bring people out. And a bit of like what, also like me being at the front of, I grew up with 3 siblings, and I was an athlete. I grew up getting hit a lot, and I know...
Well, that's the privilege that you have in the space, yeah.
And also like being in the punk scene of like, knowing how to navigate that adrenaline rush and not be overtaken by it when that groupthink energy comes in, because a lot of times I'm there to try to de-escalate, because I see the people who've maybe had a drink or two, or the teenager there who's not thinking about the consequences, and trying to validate their anger but also not do something that's going to get us tear gassed as a reaction, or have them have like longer legal consequences. Because from an organizer standpoint, I want everyone to go home so they can be there to fight another day.
Right, of course.
And a lot of it is psychology of like learning how to de-escalate with these cops, and also holding ground in that the cops are people who like power, and if you show them that you're not afraid, that their authority means little, but you're not going to give them the violence they need to get what they want, it puts them in a different position. Yeah.
For real. I don't know, speaking of people who like can't be at the protest, when I was young, I have really bad anxiety, and I would get panic attacks at protests, but before I'd get panic attacks, I'd cry. I'd be like overwhelmed with like how sad the thing we were protesting was, and I would like cry and then have a panic attack and need to be like cared for. So there was a number of years that I didn't protest. I stopped going to in-person things because I started feeling like I was the burden. I was like making it harder on the people who were experiencing the trauma around us. You know, if that was Black Lives Matter protests, like I'm Egyptian. I'm not politicized. My body is not politicized in the same way that a darker skinned Black person is. And at the same protest, I'm feeling like the weight of my community, and I'm also feeling like I am actually making this day worse for you, and it's already worse for you, you know? So there was a long period of time where I didn't protest, and I was in college, I was young, but I felt like that's the time that you want to be the most active in this. I mean, look at the student protesters today, you know, that's the time you want to be the most in the community. So I got way louder. I just got generally way louder in all spaces, on the internet, on social media, in the people I talk to, in the conversations at the dinner table, in the dorm room, and I was just known for constantly talking about these subjects that matter to me so greatly, and it taught me a lot, because now I protest more, obviously, but because I'm in a different like mental space, but it taught me a lot about accessibility and being a part of the movement at home. Mm-hmm. It also made me reframe my entire personal perception of my artistic career, because I was like, oh, I'm going to be a celebrity. right? I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be a huge celebrity. And then I realized that I wanted the issues that I cared about, whether that was like class consciousness or race or Palestine or whatever these things are that are all interconnected ideas. I wanted them to all be so present in my art. And it opened up for me a world where like art is activism, right? Where art,
yeah.
If you can't be at the protest, it's fine. You can't be at the protest. Not everybody has that privilege. But you can also do a variety of other things. You know, just being an actor and speaking about Palestine right now is very radical. It's a very radical thing to do because of how politicized speaking on this subject has become in the entertainment space. And that is activism. I mean, we love to like make fun of like keyboard warriors. Obviously, if you're keyboard warrioring and not talking about it in your real life, not taking any real risks in your career, then that's not real activism. But saying something is sometimes also doing something. Being someone that cannot be silenced is also doing something. You know, I don't know. I think a lot about the way these interconnect, art and activism.
I liked a lot of the stuff you brought up there I at times feel like art does more from an individual standpoint than from a collective as an activist, because a lot of times the stuff that keeps people out there is knowing that knowing that there's an artist that's going to remember their struggle, or what brought them out there was hearing that song of like, oh no, other people are seeing this beyond our few posts.
Right.
And I'm like, I read Artists in Times of War by Howard Zinn, and he talked about how artists are in this unique position where we can use lies and fiction to tell truths and mirrors of our reality. And I was thinking even like Irish history, like rebel songs, when the occupiers take away the history books, you can preserve the history through song, through poetry. And a lot of times when I'm doing my historical research, the oldest references are poems across the world.
Right.
And that changed my perspective on poetry, of thinking, oh, poets are the first historians.
Right.
And in the landscape we're in now, I think it's so important for especially people in the entertainment industry, because of all the Zionist connections to the film industry. And hearing those voices puncture through as an audience member, it's like, oh, cool, I am not going to see this marginalized group downgraded in these productions. I'm going to see human portrayals of these humans that are going through very real struggles.
Right.
Because there's been plenty of movies or shows where I'm like, that's not the name of that place. That's quite problematic what they're doing, or how they're framing a narrative as one side. Like, they had that movie come out about the hostages that were taken at the Olympics.
I think I saw this movie.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it, but it was over Israel's involvement. I think it was like Lebanon and Palestine, and they completely focused on, oh my God, they're taking these people hostage. Not, they took Olympic athletes hostage because no one else was listening to them at all. And a lot of times it's people not feeling heard that drives them to do those crazy things. And art provides that wonderful sense of, oh no, we are heard, we are seen, we don't have to go to these extremes. And especially when people are getting fired throughout the film industry, careers are being changed, it's so much more important, because it's only acceptable as long as the majority are okay with it. But if every actor, every production company were to come out and support, then it's like, okay.
Right. Well, so I'll speak from personal experience. Last summer, I co-directed with a director named Mahmoud Abu Bakr. We directed a show called Handala, a celebration of Palestine, which it had very simple goals. It was essentially the humanization of the Palestinian people through individual stories throughout generations. Handala, the character, which is a very popular cartoon in Palestine of a little boy looking away. You never see his face. And that character introduces each of the narratives. and it covers a man trying to climb the wall, as well as an Israeli IOF soldier seeing him and questioning if he was on the right side for the first time or not. Each of these narratives were based on real interviews with real people. So that was a real former IOF soldier, was a real man who came to the show every night, actually, who climbed the wall in Philistine. There's a little girl who grew up and came to the show. Like, this was the story of her childhood. It was very amazing and humanizing. And we spent 3 months working on the show. We did it in Philly, in LA first. Then we did it in Philly. Then we did it on Off-Broadway in New York. When we got to Philly, I really wanted to have more Jewish voices a part of the project. So we reached out to former IOF soldiers from from different organizations so that we could hear what rehabilitation sounds like for someone who used to be on the wrong side of history, and what risk they've taken to be where they are now. It was really beautiful, incredible work, and really humanizing. And it was a real passion of mine to make sure that it didn't sound like we were trying to tell somebody else's story, but that people got to tell their stories. Well, while we were in Philadelphia, which is my hometown, there was a poster of an Israeli hostage on a light pole that had "We will never stop." It was, obviously it was a pro-Israel poster. It said, "We will never stop the war. We will kill them all. Kill all Hamas. Kill all Palestine, kill all Muslims." Like, it was a lot of, there were 2 posters, one on each side of a light pole. I was infuriated. I was just inflamed. I was doing this work that I felt was so, like, moving us towards peace. And here are these people using the faces of, it wasn't even a hostage, actually. It was the American hostage that had already passed. And it was like the face of people who are gone now, to politicize a war that is killing innocent people on big on Palestine, but also on both sides. This young man, whoever he is, which blessing and peace to him and his family. But still, you're politicizing this man who's passed, and you're reminding, like, the people in the street of this horrible loss, and you're instigating. This is an instigative poster, and I was so inflamed by feeling like I was fighting for peace, and this poster was instigating in my hometown, in a place that I was bringing this passion project. All of the proceeds from the project were going to Gaza to support a man whose mother has breast cancer, and they're trying to evacuate her. I was just so passionate about the project. I saw this poster and I got so upset and I ripped it down. Obviously, this was a trap. It had been put up by somebody who was parked right there. So he saw me pulling down the poster, and he came out of the vehicle and he was like, "You're Hamas buddies." I immediately was like, basically, peace be upon you, my guy. Like, it was literally like, I was so religious all of a sudden. God bless you. God bless Palestine. Ceasefire now. I hope the hostages come home safely. Even God bless Israel. Like, I was really very neutral about it. Just, I hope you stay safe, sir. I hope safety comes upon you and your family. I don't even know what I said. It was very peace forward. The video is very Googleable, so Google it. But it's very much me saying, like, and I hope you have a good day, sir. And I hope God blesses you and you stay safe in these very dangerous cities. And I hope the hostages come home safely and ceasefire now. And I hope Palestine is safe. I'm very, very peace forward. Anyway, it doesn't matter because it went very viral. It was the week before the presidential debate. So there was really nothing going on in the news. And I was a really great thing to amplify. So I got posted on stopantisemitism.org. I was on the front page. I was the bookmarked thing at the top of their Instagram. You couldn't Google me without this video coming up. And like I said, I'm an actor, so I got, my reps got phone calls, text messages from people, from casting directors, from casting offices, people were just calling left and right saying they would never work with me again. And I was even my reps were like, "We saw the video and you didn't say anything violent. But at the end of the day, and this is not their words, but at the end of the day, it looks like a Hindu or Muslim person is going around pulling down the pictures of Jewish people. My name is Rebecca. My family is Christian. So it's just giving racism. But it really, it really raised the stakes for me a lot, and it put me in a really, like, once again, my art is my activism. Being around, being alive, being loud, and not disappearing is the purpose of my activism at this time. Because what they want, it was so scary. It was really scary. It was a lot of death threats. They're calling all my jobs. I work at Universal Studios. They called Universal Studios. I work at escape rooms. They called all these escape room companies. Nobody gives a fuck. Okay, for the record. Most of the escape rooms are owned by Ukrainian people. They are not supporting you. They support me, actually. So, there was a lot of, the attempts made to ruin my life. And it felt so scary. Obviously, I didn't know whether these people were going to fire me or not. I got lucky because these people were like, my bosses were like, no, we understand what war is like. You didn't say anything violent, and we support your peaceful endeavor. So I got very lucky in that way that, like, my day jobs didn't fire me. But at the same time, the Hilton Hotel called my agent, said I would never work for them. I would never be in a commercial. I would never be in any Hilton sponsored anything. Casting directors called, agencies called. I've basically been tabled by the industry and I've been told this pretty like to my face that I needed to wait at least a year for that to not be in the pressing news. And then the last thing my reps said about it to me was that essentially, like, in this time that I should be practicing essentially what I'm saying right now, which is that this will keep coming back and I must be prepared to speak about it.
Holy shit.
So it's like, it's I think art personalizes. That's the whole point. Mm-hmm. An individual and not a thing, a big generic subject. Palestine. Okay, that's a big generic concept to a lot of people who don't know any Palestinians, who've never met a Palestinian in their life. The point of an artist is to humanize. Oh, it's one thing to say, you can't talk about this. It's another thing to say, look at what happened to this person who did talk about this in the most peaceful way they could. Look at what happened to that person. I think that's a big part of why you make art and why you speak out as an artist. Because some people go to the protest because Kalani might be there. That's an artist who's doing their art for Palestine, and also just their existence as an artist is humanizing a subject that most people don't know shit about. Yeah. And that, for me, these are like really complicated intersecting ideas, but it's what I think about a lot, which is like, what is the purpose of not only making my art about things that I care about, but also existing as an artist in a space that also pushes the movement forward and shows you that it's not just activists, it's Becca. You know Becca. Mm-hmm. It's not just activists, it's Kalani, the artist that you've been listening to for 10 years, whatever, There's so much social responsibility on artists today.
I'm sorry you had to go through all that.
That's okay.
I always like that the left is getting the flack on us that we have the paid activists, when it's like, this is provoking people with trauma porn, and then being there with ambush style tabloid stuff to get in their face, and then a systematic effort to ruin their careers.
Right.
And it sounds like other stories I've heard where someone would make a post for Palestine on a Sunday night and their job would be emailed at 6 a.m. on Monday.
Yes.
With the exact clip. It's like, someone stayed up editing. And that's what I'm always like shocked is like people are losing sleep and going out of their time, not spending time with their kids and it's or whatever, and how mechanical it is. Like it's beyond advocacy, concerns, or communal support. Like I've community organized. This is like got you. We're gonna ruin your life, not trying to actually help the cause. And I was taken back when it's like, oh yeah, now your career's derailed and I've run into my own few hurdles over posts but could never like prove stuff directly. But that's always a fear I have is like, oh, today's the day. Oh, it's just a change in the schedules. Oh, I thought it was something else. And for me it's also like the art is important, hearing like other people coming from a place of privilege talking about their perspective on this, of going like, hey, you also find like Macklemore and Name Buddha, two rappers who were talking about Palestine. It's like you also find yourself in a place of privilege breaking down these topics and trying to contribute to a discussion that other people are telling, but trying to uplift those because the powers that be and the judgments that be aren't listening to them.
Right.
And that's where like I try to connect it to where I'm coming from, of like, hey, when people ask like why I support Palestine so much, like because I'm a human, because I've been this isn't the first time I've seen brown children obliterated by American weapons.
We grew up here.
And then also that so many of the accounts I've been reading of the famine, of the starvation, of the entrapment, they sound eerily similar to Irish history. And to think like, oh, I'm getting a glimpse of what my ancestors went through before there were cameras.
Right.
And just taking that in for a moment of...
We're also getting a glimpse of what's going to happen next right here in America.
Yes. And just having that sense of empathy for not just what's happening now, but the people who have been through it in Palestine, the people who are still going through it. And then in a weird way, like I'm looking at everyone's like, I'm more suspicious of the people who haven't posted about Palestine yet.
I'm very suspicious of those people.
I want to turn the tables on all them. Like, hey, it's been years. You haven't said anything once. And I hope that's how the tables get turned around is, you know what? We're all fine. We saw what's been happening.
I don't think that's going to happen. What I do think is going to happen is that, you know, when the thing is over, it'll always be easy to say, you know, the thing was the thing. That quote has been said much more eloquently many times before I said it just now, but I usually believe, and maybe this is the optimism in me, and that's when I'm thinking about my career the most, when I'm thinking about how, like, this is my dream for my life. All my life, I've had no other dream or goal in my life than to be an actor. And the idea that that is being stolen away from me can be so scary sometimes. So I think about, like, you know, when all is said and done, none of these executives, none of these producers wanted to look like they were the one that were racist all along. They don't want to be the one that was like, actually, like, I was all on the wrong side of history. Everyone wants to look like, low-key, they've been hiring brown people all this time, you know? Just like a lot of black actors will talk about how after the George Floyd protests, there was an increase, an uptick in roles for black actors. And obviously not an equal amount of roles than there are for white people, because that has yet to happen. But there was an uptick because nobody wanted to look like they didn't support George Floyd before this all happened. You know, everybody wanted to look like they were actually on the right side of history all along. And that's what I believe will happen next. I don't believe that... there will always be people who hunker down on the Israeli side. That's always going to exist. But I do think that a lot of people who right now stay silent, when it's all said and done, they will go to whatever side benefits them the most, is the most convenient for them. I have this whole, like, spiel about theater companies mostly of my career in theater, but really any kind of company But theater is probably the best example. You know, when they make a season, you know, a theater company establishes a season. There's going to be 4 plays this year, and they're all white plays, and they get all this backlash, you know, and then they're like, we learned. We're going to put August Wilson in the 3rd slot this year. Everyone's like, yay, you did it. They didn't do it because they learned their lesson about accessibility, about representation, about how they needed to be not telling their own stories over and over again and only their own stories. They did it because they wanted to appease the masses. They don't really understand why they needed to make that choice or that change in order to appease these masses. They just know to make money, they must appease the masses. And that is, unfortunately, how I feel about where the next era of entertainment will go. But I also have a very optimistic theory that when you do the right thing for a long enough time, that feels like the right thing now. That at some point, 5 years from now, they couldn't even imagine taking that the black show out of the 4-show season that they created. It's a very common trope. Okay, well now the 3rd show of the year is the black show, or the POC show. You know, whatever will make the people happy. That's the 3rd show. Now that kind of turnover happened maybe 5-6 years ago in my community in Philadelphia. Now those theater companies would not even dare change that show. That would be upheaval. You know, that would be we're progressive. We are progressive. We've got to keep that show POC, you know. I believe, even if it's not coming from the most authentic place, that these things become normal and accepted. And it's weird if you change it now. You go back and you aren't accessible, or you aren't, now you're taking us backwards. Whether or not you moved forward for the right reason or not. You know that going back would be going backwards. It's kind of convoluted to say that, but yeah, I'm saying that, like, even if you're peer pressured into the right decision, if you make the right decision for a long enough time, you can't go back. You'll have to keep moving forward. You can't undo the right decision. That's my hope. I think the American government makes the wrong decision after making the right decision many times. But I think smaller organizations, companies, people, artists, they want to move forward. You know, even if they don't move forward always for the right reasons, they want to progress, get better. I hope.
It's like America we do 3 wrong decisions for every right one we get. Right. But we put the right one we get in bold and sparkle it up like we did this.
Right, exactly. But then after you do the right one for a long enough time, people are like, we have always done this. You did it, though. You came here because people pushed you to. You got the big shiny one because of social pressure.
I kind of have this, like, gray line between your 2 visions of, I've noticed this with entertainment, of the thing they're against, they, like, whether, like, using, like, NWA as my reference points, like, oh, this hip-hop that's criticizing society, we don't like it, and then they realize it makes a ton of money.
Right.
And then they start to see how they can extrapolate the money, but remove the messaging. So they, like, diluted hip-hop till it got to what it is now.
Right.
And then they did the same thing to, like, punk rock, where it's like, oh, it's edgy and it hates the system. Let's dilute it gradually, take less politics, more money. And then they figure out a way to extract the artists who will give the aesthetic but not the message.
That's true.
And then they can be like, what? No, we are giving these artists, this genre, this demographic a chance to be heard. But they're being very selective and filtering so they can get their profits without getting the message across.
But I still feel that the progression of hip-hop is another example of, like, you'll follow the money, but you cannot take the politics out of the art. If it started political, it will always keep getting just a little bit more. But you can take it out of mainstream art. But you'll never stop Kendrick Lamar from existing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess, like, the mainstream being what gets pushed,
yes,
promoted, because I've noticed where it's like, oh, there's plenty of great albums and artists out there, but you have to look them up by name or have hopefully your circles or your algorithms cross paths where half the rappers I listen to, mainstream American hip-hop fans haven't heard of. Just because it's not in their circles. But that's just, I've noticed how people can get digitally boxed into a corner if they're not seeing certain things. Where, as I'm told back in the day, it was more communal because of record stores and radio stations had more freedom because most radio stations these days are automated, so they're playing the same stuff and...
Yeah. I don't know, I agree with you. I think, I really want to believe that we as a culture try to push in the right direction. I think that there will always be powers that disempower anyone who does move in the right direction. You know, the 1%, the producers, the biggest power people in the country, they are not the ones pushing you into progress. They're the ones holding on to the last remnant of what was yesteryear. You know, they're never going to be the ones that push forward. They're always going to be the ones that go with the money. But I feel that artists and consumers will always push for more. And that is like our one saving grace. That it will never, enough is never enough. It will never be enough. So we must keep going. We must keep thriving for more. We must say, no, I know that there's one show in the season, but there needs to be 4 shows in the season, actually. You know, and every art form, every community, every organization, there are the people who are loud, who will always push for more. And they'll never settle for less once they've got a little bit more. They're never going to be like, well, next season, they don't have to do a pre-OC show. No, next year, you had 1 last year. You better have 2 next year. You know, and that is what I believe an artist's place is in the community, is saying, no, more next year. More next year. Someone will always pull us back, but we will always push it forward, you know? You'll never be able to erase the impact that early hip-hop made on the hip-hop community. You know? As much as they try to steal it and sanitize it and disempower it and take it off the radio, you'll never be able to take politics out of hip-hop. You'll never be able to take trauma out of art, because that's where it was born, you know? And we're always going to be pushing for more, because that's where the art was born. Feed me. You know?
Well said.
Thanks. I don't think so. I disagree.
This is a great opportunity to cut to a commercial break. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. I have another question for you.
Go for it.
If you had to flee the country, where would you go?
Oh, that's a good question. If I had to flee the country?
Yeah.
But, like, I could go anywhere, they're not going to, like, extradite me? To live? I have to live there forever?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll give you some names I'm popping around. Thinking about Thailand. Thinking about Cyprus. My friend lives there. I'm thinking about Ireland. It's on the list.
Cyprus has a wild history.
I know.
My
friend is a dancer there.
I've watched documentaries on it. That map flies left to right and flags change.
I know. They're non-binary living in Cyprus. I'm like, yeah, they're like super queer dancer, like.
Well, the gender's probably the second or third thing you identify as that they're most concerned about.
They're also Jewish.
Oh my.
Ukrainian. Yeah, it's a lot. They're dope.
Okay, that sounds like a awesome HBO show. A Jewish, non-binary Ukrainian living on Cyprus. And
their life is an incredible show.
Well, I just think that'd be funny the stuff the identities they're worried about everywhere else, no one cares about. It's just asking if they're Greek or Turkish. That
is so funny.
Like, they're like, you're not worried that I'm not married? No, just the other thing.
Are you Greek?
Yeah.
Are you Turkish?
Ukrainian? Jewish? No, we don't care. Like,
but you're not Greek.
Yeah.
That's funny. What else am I thinking? What other countries am I thinking? Egypt. I would love to live in Lebanon, but
yes.
Lebanon sounds very dangerous right now. What else? Nigeria for Nollywood.
That'd be cool.
So cool.
Go there, be an icon over there.
Be dope. And it's beautiful there. Kenya. Be stunning there.
Well, that's what some baseball players...
Those are my tops. ...
did in the 20s and 30s. America was segregated, so they went over to the Dominican Republic, made 3 times as much money playing in a smaller league.
Yeah.
And
sounds dope. Sounds great. And Nollywood makes incredible work. The Nigerian Hollywood makes amazing work. So, be cool.
You're the only person I've ever asked that question to, specified for the whole life, because other people just assume insert duration.
Okay, so insert duration, Cyprus. I'd have a friend to hide me out. Sounds cool, beautiful place. That's just for the duration. I don't think I could live in Cyprus.
Yeah, like Ireland would be my go-to, but I think just from what I've seen, Japan would be cool. Like,
Japan would be dope.
Like, Bay Area weather I get from seeing parts over there, and where else? The Faroe Islands. I like, it's beautiful over there, but they do whale hunts, and I don't know if I could
live like that.
I don't know if I could be like
that's cool.
Be like,
enjoy your whale hunt. Bye.
Hey, how was your slaughter of a sentient group of trapped creatures?
Yeah, right. Were they calm or? I wouldn't be. No.
Yeah. Or like Cyprus, just when you look at the location and you don't know anything else about what's going on there, it will...
Dope, right?
Yeah.
Seems accessible to a lot of things.
Like, I think it'd be cool to, like, live in the Basque region in Spain.
Cool. That's nice.
Just because it's, like, such a unique culture and their own little bubble.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
So, my other question's kind of connected to this.
Okay.
What would be your last meal? If you're...
My last meal?
Big brother catches you, you're...
Damn. It's already got me. I don't know. Probably something Egyptian. Maybe I'd have koshari and fool. And like just a bunch of Egyptian traditional things, pickles.
Can you describe them for pretend like I don't?
Sure. Kushari is like every carb you've ever heard of laid on top of itself. Okay. It is rice. There's pasta in it on top of the rice. There's chickpeas on top of that. It's like, they call it sharaya. It's like the longer brown grain rice, you know, also mixed in. And then fried onions. And then a sauce, like a pasta sauce, but like a seasoned pasta sauce. And then on top of that is a vinaigrette, like a spicy vinegar dressing. And it's a big rice dish.
Wow.
Amazing. Fool is like mashed up fava beans. That's a pretty traditional dish. It's usually like a breakfast. With a lot of tomatoes in it. I like tomatoes. Maybe a salad next to that. I just want like a big spread of like traditional Egyptian things that I liked throughout my life. That's what I would want. Alternatively, sashimi. But that's, I think we were talking Japan and I was like, oh, I really need to eat some of that. But I think I'd want like a big Egyptian feast. Just have like a couple bites of everything.
Nice.
Leave it all for them to clean up. Hell yeah. I don't need to be full. I'm dying. The fuck? That seems such a waste of food, actually. Yeah, that's my meal. What about yours?
I try to make it different every time. I think it's an Armenian dish where it's like a calzone, but they cook eggs in the middle of it. So, like...
I've had that khachapuri.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I saw that online recently. I was like, I want to have that again.
So yummy. That's just a big bowl of cheese and an egg. So good. What's your favorite food?
Like, normally, like, my go-tos, like, just to... If I'm... Have to treat myself, chorizo breakfast burrito or ramen.
Like a traditional ramen from a ramen shop?
Yeah. Like, I can't do microwave ramen, like...
I don't really like ramen. I don't know what it is. I love pho.
That is in...
I don't really do ramen, but I love pho.
Because in my head, it's like... Tomato. Like,
yeah, I know. A lot of people say that. It's a soup. But I don't know. I haven't had a ramen that's like super sold me on ramens. But I've had many a phos that have been fire pho. My dad calls pho fuha. I think it's so cute. That's all I had to say on that.
Yeah, the one downside about ramen though sometimes is it'll like drip off my mustache.
Oh, that's funny.
So I feel like a dog. And such a slob.
I hate that. I got into an argument with somebody because I was like, "Wipe your mouth." They're like, "I'm still eating." I'm like, "Wipe between every bite." Like, I'm eating too.
Oh, if I'm eating with people, I wipe constantly between bites.
I couldn't handle it. We could eat a meal together, but I couldn't handle having a mustache like that, where I'd have to clean it.
Like this, it's a bit of like cultural and religious.
I respect that. I would love a beard. Just a mustache. I don't know how I would maintain it.
It's okay. So when I'm in traffic, I have a mustache comb in my car, and I've learned that other excessively facial-haired gentlemen do too. So when we're stuck in traffic, I'll comb our mustaches and turn, and then other times I'll see them like fumble around and
I love that.
Pull theirs out.
Just look at right and left and other
people
just
combing
their
mustache. Sunglasses on. Just two gentlemen going about their day.
That's funny. That's funny. What is the cultural, religious reasons, can I ask?
Yeah, so I didn't see any people in history, Irish people, that looked like me till I got into like ancient history. Everyone was like clean cut and trying to show they were noble and worthy of statehood and shouldn't be repressed.
Right.
So it was a bit of like that conformity aspect. But I learned that ancient Celtic warriors were known for their having these massive mustaches. And the druid tree priests who preserved the history were intermediators between tribes and were very much like a mix of like community organizer / religious official. Grew their beards, and it was a sign of wisdom and of longevity that you live long enough to grow it out this much. And I was learning about how other cultures and indigenous people had their connections with their hair. And it bummed me out of like, oh, we can grow these beautiful locks. Why are we pressured, whether it be, and a lot of times it was like, oh, it's for work, but just letting it grow out and seeing all the different tones and having that connection, and then being able to tell my little cousins like this when I point to my face like and my tattoos that this is what our ancestors used to look like before we were told to cut, clean up. And the last time I saw them, their dad also had shaggy hair and hadn't shaved, so I pointed to their tattoo. This is what your ancestors used to look like, and having that storytelling aspect. So when I'm on stage and I'm playing these characters or these parts, like going to the Red Fair, that my appearance can feed into the stories I'm telling.
That's great. That's super cool.
And it's fun. It's a labor of love, and it gets in the way at times, but on a windy day, it feels like my powers are activated.
And so I used to have so much so much hair, and then I just keep cutting it all off. So I love that you've maintained it.
I was teaching a poetry workshop, and one of the women there, she brought her child, and her child, it looked like if you had dyed Chris Cornell's hair naturally blonde in the early 90s, like curly, voluminous. I was like, what grunge music video did you come out of? And the kid was looking at me funny throughout the workshop. Like, I could tell he was like observing my chin, and when I would turn my head, he would see how my hair moved. And his mom told me that he got made fun of and people mistook him for a girl, and it made him insecure.
Aww.
And as the workshop was going on, at one point I shook my beard and he laughed.
That's funny.
Because I noticed playing with my beard will make little boys laugh, because they see characters with long beards, they know they could maybe someday grow one, so...
Yeah.
And by the end
Wizardy.
of the workshop, I was telling this kid, like, no, the mightiest warriors had long hair. And I pointed, like, you got a good head, I'm jealous.
Aww.
And then I was packing up, saying goodbye to people, and the kid came up to me got my attention. He didn't say a word. He turned his back to me, leaned his head back, shook his head.
Aww.
And then I
showed off his hair.
Yeah, and I sarcastically go, now you're just showing off. And he smirked and hid behind his mom's leg, but I was like, oh, I can't cut my...
Yeah.
And having little moments like that, where it's like, if my hair were short, I wouldn't have had this little interaction, because I remember being that kid who wanted his hair long, but didn't know how to handle the comparisons and the jokes.
Right.
And seeing just how we've gendered hair even, that it's like... So...
Yeah. No, that's so cool. So cool. I'm a firm believer in, like, you know, I was talking about as an artist, like, disturbing a space, being someone who doesn't shut up. But also I think that, like, the body is so politicized, and our appearances are so politicized also, that, like, you know, there's a lot of things I do because I can. Mm-hmm. Not for any other reason other than that I can. And that is cool. And that's cool. And it's unfortunate that, like, you know, it's politicized in that way. Like, you know, wearing a beard or having long hair as a boy, or, like, those are, like, low-key politicized. But just by existing, you're decolonizing a space in many ways, in some ways, by doing those things. Doing things that, like, white supremacist colonial entities taught us were the only ways to do things.
Yeah.
Fuck 'em.
Fuck 'em.
Fuck 'em.
It's a great note to end on. Where can people find you online?
You can follow me on Instagram, Becca, Becca, Beccakhalil, Becca Khalil, if you're nasty. And you can see a show I'm directing in the Hollywood Fringe Festival called Ghost Train. And you can see me at Electric Forest in the Dream Emporium. Yeah. That's what I'm doing, and that's where I'm at. Or BeccaKhalil.com.
You heard it from her. Becca Khalil. I'm Shane Kenny. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one. Salon.